Good morning out there, traders. It is January 18th, 2024. Welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight for the ES. As usual, we'll start with our recap from our last EMI, and then we'll update our plan and levels for today. So, looking at our general plan from yesterday, we had a line in the sand. This was our main idea from yesterday, with scenario one being a completion of this line in the sand down into this destination area. And that really was the main idea for the session. And we got really fortunate because whenever we were kind of planning and prepping in this zone here, I was mentioning that we might just end up seeing a small scalp into this lower zone here. But we got really fortunate in that we got a pullback to get more risk reward on this particular trade into our neutral level here. And this was the place to really get short into scenario one, looking for that move to the downside into that neutral destination area. And that really was the full play out of what we were looking for in the plan for scenario one. Remaining bearish, looking for bearish opportunities based on our levels, looking into that overall destination area, and we got it. And that was just one of those plans that worked out really, really well for us. Now, if you are a NADRO student and you are aware of what's going on with the different time frames, a lot of questions I got yesterday around getting long in this section here. Was it a good trade, bad trade? Well, here's the deal, right? We knew that this was a destination area for one of our upper time frames heading down into this zone. And the move coming back out of that is what we call a faux trade. And a faux trade is not something that we usually jump on top of and say this is an obvious opportunity. We usually wait for that particular trade to shake out a little bit before calling it a true NADRO setup. So in this particular situation, catching that long would have been very aggressive, especially given what we were seeing on the lower time frame. So it's not a layup long type of situation. It was a perfect move to the downside into this destination area, and that really was the kind of good context or the overall use of classic NADRO into this destination area. From there, the long, kind of really pushing out of that zone, not necessarily an easy trade to catch, and not one that was supported overall by the context of what we were seeing in the DMI. All right. So let's move on into our session and our levels for today. So now taking a look at what we have going on with today's session, we have shifted a couple of time frames to be much more bullish. In this particular zone, I know is a little large, but it encompasses two different time frames, and this really is the area that we're monitoring for that bullishness to hold. So essentially, this is our line in the sand for the session, and we're looking for scenario one being a continuation to the upside. Now, how far does that upside go? Really, this is the overall destination for that upside. But like yesterday, we could end up seeing pullbacks into some neutral references for opportunities to continue to get long before the line in the sand. So it's one of those situations where if we get the pullback, we'll have to monitor the lower time frames and things like that for inflections at areas that make sense. But once we get down in that line in the sand zone, this is really where we're going to be paying attention to scenario one for any further upside. As I said, this is the main destination area for the overall idea. However, these two neutral references are going to be important for us as well. So if we get up above them, heading into here makes a lot of sense. And then if we get up above this, this would be like the final stretch target for anything that we'd be looking for really to the upside, this 48, 19, 25 level. And that would kind of be the end of the line for what I'm looking for out of scenario one. If we end up seeing the sellers really take over this market, we see some strong selling throughout the session, we'll end up getting down below these neutral references and into here. In this zone here, I would still be monitoring scenario one, but once we clear that out and get down below it, scenario two would just be a move down into this 47.24 area. And that would be essentially what we were looking at there with scenario two. So pretty straightforward in terms of what we're actually planning for today's session. One line in the sand, kind of binary outcomes with scenario one being our current situation. Now, the way in which this might manifest itself, we could be looking at pullbacks, heading back into neutral levels here, looking for inflections. If we get up above this one, a possible chance to scalp to the upside and then maybe get some continuation to this upside here. So it's kind of one of those scenarios where you have to kind of wait and see and look at how the session kind of develops overall with our shorter term tools and using those to the best of our abilities within the scope of understanding that we are bullish in context.